else who made me deliberately edit it? I've never done this before. Owen Fu's forehead veins twitched as he picked up the documents on the ground. The above has detailedly depicted all the things Lin Maisie did behind the scenes. Since Lin Maisie came to Owen Fu's side as a secretary, she has repeatedly plotted evidence to frame Lila Jiang. When she framed Lila Jiang for hitting her at home, the surveillance camera clearly captured that it was she who first provoked Lila Jiang, and it was also she who held Lila Jiang's hand and hit him. She framed Lila Jiang and forced her to leave Beijing. In fact, it was she herself who had her slapped more than 10 times and deliberately put on makeup to make it look more serious. Before Owen Fu came to see her, she had been hanging out and enjoying herself with other men. It was not until Owen Fu went to see her that she pretended to be pitiful. Taking advantage of his sense of guilt, he proposed to fight back to the Lila River, and only then did she agree to stay. And her suicide. In fact, the skin she cut was very shallow and the blood she bled was only a little. The so-called rescue for excessive blood loss was nothing but a show of buying plasma. It was she who bribed those doctors and nurses. Owen Fu held the documents in his hands. The more he looked, the more gloomy and ugly his expression became. His fingers trembled as he clutched the documents tightly, his eyes red. The next moment he finally couldn't stand it any longer and kicked Lin Maisie hard in the abdomen, sending her flying. Bitch. Lin Maisie let out a scream and collapsed to the ground in great pain. Owen Fu's kick was extremely forceful. Lin Maisie's whole body twitched and she suddenly covered her abdomen. Why? My stomach. It hurt so much. Almost at the moment her words were spoken, a pool of blood rose from beneath her. The child she wanted to frame Owen Fu is gone. Lin Maisie was in so much pain that tears streamed down her face, but she didn't care about it at all. She just looked at Owen Fu pitifully. Mr. Fu, I was wrong. It's all because I love you so much and I want to marry you that I did all this. I was forced to do it. Please let me go. Her plea for mercy seemed like hot oil poured over her anger. Owen Fu, out of control, rushed over and kicked Lin Maisie hard in the abdomen again. One after another without the slightest mercy. Bitch. How dare you? How dare you plan to hurt Roro like this? You deserve to die. Die to me. Go to hell. Owen Fu's eyes reddened and he went all out, almost aiming for his life to strike. Lin Maisie was trembling with terror and desperately begged for mercy. Mr. Fu, please spare me. I was wrong. Please. Owen Fu, however, didn't stop at all. No matter how Lin Maisie begged for mercy, he kicked dozens of times. Lin Maisie was convulsing all over and had completely lost consciousness, looking as if she was breathing out more and taking in less. Fu's mother waved her hand and signaled the bodyguard. Stop him. The bodyguard rushed forward, seized the furious Owen Fu and stopped him. Fu Mu said coldly, even if you kill her now it won't help. Owen Fu suddenly calmed down a little. He ran out in a daze. I have to go and find Roro. I have to find her. Fu's mother didn't stop him and let him rush out like a madman. Looking at his back, she sighed silently. Son, you came to your senses too late. Lila Jiang has a stubborn personality. After suffering so much injustice, she has never complained or poured out her grievances to her mother-in-law. Now when these things are handed to her, her attitude is self-evident. She has already. I've completely given up on Owen Fu. Owen Fu had already rushed to the parking lot. He took out his mobile phone and couldn't wait to call Lila Jiang's number. However, when the call was made, no one answered for a long time. Owen Fu was feeling frustrated and accidentally saw an unread text message on his mobile phone. By some strange twist of fate, he clicked in and found that it was from the Civil Affairs Bureau, informing him that the cooling-off period had ended and he could go to get the divorce certificate. If it were in the past, he would surely just smile and no longer pay attention. But at this moment, Owen Fu felt his breathing hard and his heart was extremely panicked. But he tried desperately to comfort himself. No, Lila Jiang loves him so much that she definitely won't be willing to divorce him. He agreed to divorce merely to scare Lila Jiang. This was an unspoken understanding between them. They had long known to each other that they were going to be together for a lifetime. Owen Fu kept comforting himself and brainwashing himself before he could calm down a little. He got into the car, stepped on the accelerator all the way down and rushed out. Every word in those documents kept surfacing in his mind. Just thinking about how he had helped Lin Maisie and bullied and hurt Lila Jang so much like this made him hate himself to the core. He turned into an executioner who hurt the one he loved the most. If Lila Jang is discharged from the hospital, she must have gone home. She will surely be waiting at home for his apology and for him to come to his senses. Just like countless times before. Owen Fu, filled with guilt and remorse, rushed straight home. As he opened the door, he shouted in a panic, "Ruruo! Ruruo! I know I was wrong, Ruruo. Sorry. And at the very moment he opened the door, his eyes were drawn to the red thin book on the shoe cabinet. Owen Fu's movements froze instantly, and he stared blankly at the red document. He seemed as if his entire being had been immobilized. It was quite a while before he came to his senses. With a stiff movement, he reached out his hand and grabbed the thin yet seemingly heavy red book. Divorce certificate. Impossible. This is false. This must be fake. Owen Fu trembled as he opened the divorce certificate. Above his name is displayed. The steel stamp on the divorce certificate shattered his last shred of fantasy. He and Lila Jang really got divorced. Owen Fu's eyes were instantly pricked, so painful that tears welled up in them. At this moment, the piece of paper beneath the divorce certificate fell to the ground. Owen Fu mechanically bent down to pick it up, but as he hunched over and looked clearly at the words on it, his pupils suddenly constricted and he lost his strength. Consent form for abortion surgery. He and Lila Jang's children. It's gone. It's gone. Owen Fu slumped to the ground. He looked up, his vacant eyes fixed on the villa where he and Lila Jang had lived for 3 years. Those things inside that he thought he was familiar with had long been thrown away by Lila Jang last time because of his quarrel with her. At this moment the villa was empty and desolate like a cage. He who had been abandoned by the Lila River was trapped within it. Owen Fu, in a state of utter collapse, raised his hand tightly grasping his hair, hunched over and shouted out in excruciating pain. "Ah! Ruruo! I was wrong. I was wrong." Lila Jiang had already returned to the Jiang family by this time. She was wearing a white dress and pushing a simple suitcase as she walked straight into the house. Jiang's parents and Lila Jiang's elder brother Jiang Jian were chatting idly. Hearing the commotion, he turned his head to look at her and immediately looked over with a look of surprise and delight. Jiang Jian joked, "Oh, you rare guest. How come you suddenly decide to go home and see your parents and me, a left-behind child?" Mother Jiang also looked at the box she was carrying in her hand in surprise. "Ruo, why did you still bring a suitcase? Did you have a quarrel with Owen? The Jiang family and the Fu family are not far apart. It's just a 2-hour drive." Lila Jiang would come home for a meal occasionally, but she had been clingy to Owen Fu since childhood. After getting married, Owen Fu was even more clingy to her. She seldom moved back directly. At this moment, seeing her carrying a suitcase, her family couldn't help but feel puzzled. Lila Jiang opened her mouth and her eyes suddenly reddened. The joking expression on Jiang Jian's face vanished instantly, and he frowned as he stepped forward. "What happened? Did Owen Fu bully you? I'm going to beat him up right now." Saying that, he rushed out. Lila Jiang hurriedly grabbed his hand. Looking at the concerned gazes of her family members, Lila Jiang choked up and said, "Dad, Mom, brother, I'm divorced from Owen Fu." The Jiang family members were startled and said in unison, "What?" Exclamation point. Lila Jiang was dragged onto the sofa and sat down. The Jiang family members all had rather solemn expressions on their faces. They knew how good the relationship between Lila Jiang and Owen Fu was. Lila Jiang is not a very spoiled person. She grew up with Owen Fu since childhood and hardly ever quarreled. How could this be so fine? Just suddenly got divorced? Looking at her parents' concerned expressions, Lila Jiang didn't want them to persuade her to remarry Owen Fu. Immediately, he no longer concealed anything but told everything that had happened over the past 6 months. Mother Jiang listened while crying. By the time Lila Jiang finished speaking, Jiang's mother had already collapsed into Jiang's father's arms, crying so hard. Her hands trembled as she cupped Lila Jiang's arms and carefully pulled up her sleeves, revealing the 3 scars on her arms. Mother Jiang cried and said, "You are so stupid. Having suffered so much injustice, why didn't you tell your parents and elder brother? How could I just be so foolishly bullied?" Lila Jiang was sobbing uncontrollably. She didn't want her family to worry and also didn't expect Owen Fu was actually so cruel to her. She has indeed paid the price for her naivety. Jiang Jian looked at the injury on Lila Zhang's arm and gritted his teeth even harder, clenching his fists tightly. His eyes were bloodshot. When he mentioned Owen Fu's name, he wished he could chew him to pieces. Zhang's father was usually rather restrained. Looking at his daughter who had been wronged, his eyes also reddened. After calming down for a moment, he directly picked up his mobile phone and informed his secretary, "Notice. From today on, the Jiang and Fu families are irreconcilable. Jiang family and Fu family, we won't stop until we die." Lila Jiang was taken aback and looked at Zhang's father with some concern. "Dad." Zhang's father raised his hand to stop Lila Zhang's words. "Daughter, your parents have been striving hard all their lives just to ensure that our son and daughter can live a comfortable life. If my daughter is bullied like this and we still have to think it over carefully, hide and endure, then what is the purpose of our efforts?" Mother Jiang beside her also nodded immediately. "Exactly. No matter what happened to the Fu family in the past, they just won't do to you like this." Jiang Jian also nodded immediately. "Exactly. I also support Dad's decision." Lila Jiang, with tears streaming down her face, couldn't hold back any longer and threw herself into her parents' arms, wailing loudly. Lila Jiang's room was often tidied up by her mother, and it was always spotlessly clean. Exhausted, Lila Jiang handed her suitcase to the servant and then went back to her room to rest. Finally back with her family, her heart finally settled down and she could finally have a peaceful sleep. And on the very night when Lila Jiang returned home, Fu's mother came in person. The falling out between the Jiang family and the Fu family has been making a big fuss online. However, Fu's mother has always been very fond of Lila Jiang and her brother. Although Zhang's parents were angry, seeing Fu's mother's very polite attitude, the first thing she said was to care about Lila Jiang's health. They still let her in. Lila Jiang hesitated for a while but still went downstairs. When Fu's mother saw Lila Jiang, her eyes welled up with tears for a moment. "You've lost weight." During this period, Lila Jiang has not only been psychologically hurt but also physically tortured. Her already slender body has lost a lot of weight. These two simple words made Zhang's parents' eyes well up with tears and they felt extremely heartbroken. Fu Mu sighed and then made her position clear. "Roro, Auntie isn't here to persuade you to make up with Owen. Back then, I divorced Owen's father because he had an affair with his secretary. I never expected that he would follow in his father's footsteps. I have already investigated the identity of Lin Maisie. When she was in college, she was kept by someone. Later she got involved with Fu Xiang, who sent her to get close to Owen." Lila Jiang was taken aback. She found out that Lin Maisie was not clean, but she didn't look into who was behind the scenes. She knew that if she handed over the materials, Fu's mother would surely be able to find out. But I never expected it to be Fu Xiang. Owen Fu's half-brother, the child born to his mistress. When Fu's mother found out that Fu's father was unfaithful, even the son of the mistress was only 1 year younger than Owen Fu. Heartbroken, she divorced him directly. Out of guilt, Fu's father also left most of the family property to Owen Fu and his mother. I never expected that I would now be targeted by the son of the mistress. Lila Jiang could only sigh. Immediately after, Fu's mother took out another document. "No matter what the reason is, it's a fact that he has wronged you. This is the compensation I give you as his mother." Lila Jiang opened the document and found that it was actually the shares of the Fu family, which accounted for more than half of the assets under Fu's mother's name. Fu's mother looked at the Jiang family with a wry smile. "To be honest, I did this also to preserve the Fu family. I don't want the things I have strived for all my life to be ruined by him. It's better to call a truce than for the two families to fight and benefit others." Fu's mother was well aware that the Jiang family's rage had only lasted for 1 day, and both families had already suffered heavy losses. If this continues, it will be bad for both families. So she rushed overnight just to find a way to solve this matter. Zhang's father and mother remained silent for a moment. Jiang Jian spoke first. "What about Owen Fu?" Mother Fu said calmly, "I'll have Owen leave the company and find a suitable successor from the side department." Jiang Jian's eyes were cold and solemn. "You should know how Owen Fu treated our family's Ruro, right? What our Jiang family wants is far more than that." Before Fu's mother came, she went to see Owen Fu and told him the decision to compensate the Jiang family. Thinking of Owen Fu's remorseful and painful look at that time, she gave a wry smile. I know. I won't interfere with how you treat him. Just consider it as letting him atone for his sins. Lila Jang finally agreed to Fu's mother's proposal. After all, from childhood to adulthood, before and after marriage, Fu's mother had always been very kind to her. She hated Owen Fu, but she didn't vent her anger on Fu's mother. In front of the Jang family, Fu's mother directly asked the company to issue a statement, announcing that Owen Fu would no longer be the president of the Fu family from then on. Lila Jiang entrusted the matter to Jiang Jian to handle and planned to travel abroad for a period of time herself. During this period she was physically and mentally exhausted. She didn't want to get entangled with Owen Fu any longer. However, before they could set off the next day, Owen Fu had already arrived at the Jiang family's gate. Accompanying him was Lin Maisie. In the past, when Owen Fu came to the Jiang family, it was as natural as coming to his own home. From top to bottom, the Jiang family treated him extremely close. The old servants of the Jiang family had watched him and Lila Jiang grow up. At this moment, as soon as he appeared, everyone looked at him with hostile eyes. The bodyguards even walked out of the Jiang family's house directly and stared at the gate tightly, not allowing him to step in even half a step. The earth-shaking changes made Owen Fu's heart ache even more. He looked up and gazed in the direction of the Lila River room inside the villa. At this moment, Lila Jiang also heard the commotion downstairs. Standing by the window and looking out, she spotted him at a glance. The two looked into each other's eyes. Owen Fu, in a daze, recalled the past. Once upon a time, before the Fu family moved to another district to live, the two families lived next door. He often came to the Jiang family to look for Lila Jiang. Sometimes when they made an appointment to go out together, Lila Jiang would get ready early and wait for him by the window. As soon as he reached the door, she could spot him at once, and the moment she saw him, her eyes instantly shone brightly. Within 3 minutes, he could hear the rapid thumping of footsteps. Before long, she would fly out of the house like a fluttering butterfly and fall into his arms. At this moment, the two of them, as before, were gazing at each other from afar. There was not a trace of joy in Lila Jiang's eyes, only coldness and ruthlessness. She looked down at him from a height, her gaze even more distant and cold than that of a stranger. Owen Fu was heartbroken beyond words and murmured to her, "Roro." In just 2 days he was no longer the spirited and strategic figure he used to be. He hadn't slept for 2 full days, and at this moment his eyes were filled with red blood vessels that had been boiled over. The moment he saw the Lila River, his eyes reddened. Thinking of all the hardships she had endured, thinking of her being sent to the operating room to have their child aborted. Owen Fu suddenly raised his hand and slapped himself hard in the face. The next moment he turned around directly and dragged Lin Maisie out of the car. Lin Maisie had her hair loose, her face black and blue, and she looked very disheveled. The moment Owen Fu reached out his hand to her, she immediately screamed in terror. "No! Don't hit me. I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Please don't hit me anymore. Please." She struggled frantically, no longer showing the slightest trace of her former arrogance. Owen Fu didn't hold her back. She knelt directly on the ground and kowtowed loudly in the direction of Owen Fu and the Jiang family. With just a few strokes of force, her forehead was marked with blood by the crushed stones. But she didn't dare to stop at all and could only kowtow desperately. Thinking of everything that had happened in the hospital, Lin Maisie's eyes were filled with terror and fear. She was knocked unconscious by Owen Fu just like that. Her child was kicked to the point of miscarriage. And that was not all. She bled heavily on the operating table, and Owen Fu directly asked the doctor to remove her uterus. She will never be able to get pregnant again in her life. Owen Fu is a lunatic, a complete lunatic. Lin Maisie had never had such a moment of regret to provoke him. Owen watched her kowtow with cold eyes and ignored her. Instead, he raised his voice directly and said in the direction of the Lila River, "Roro, I already know what Lin Maisie has done. Don't worry. No matter how many times she has hurt you, I will return to her 10 times as much of the torment. She broke your heart and aborted our child. I also made her lose her child and had the doctor remove her uterus. She will never be able to use this belly to harm others again in her life. Roro, how else do you want to torture her to calm down? Tell me and I'll do it all." Lila Jiang watched Lin Maisie's frantic apology at the door. After a moment of surprise, his eyes quickly calmed down. She did not sympathize with Lin Maisie's fate, nor did she feel the least bit relieved because of her tragic situation. There is only one thought: you deserve it. She still remembers very clearly the way Lin Maisie was so arrogant and kept provoking her back then. Seeing that Lila Jang remained silent all the time, Owen Fu's eyes became even redder. He looked up at her, his eyes filled with guilt, remorse and yearning. All kinds of complex emotions overwhelmed him. Bro, I know. Actually, the person you hate is not Lin Maisie but me. The one who has hurt you the most is me. I shouldn't have blindly believed her words. I shouldn't have been so stupid as to hurt you for her. I really regret it. I really know I was wrong, Ruoro. Please forgive me again, okay? I swear this is the last time. Whatever you ask me to do, I really can't live without you. Owen Fu's voice was hoarse and painful, carrying an endless and humble plea. Lila Jang looked at his pained, pleading expression and in a trance recalled the past. She raised her hand and gently pressed it against her own chest. Once, when she saw Owen Fu pleading for mercy, she would feel heartbroken and uncomfortable. But now, seeing him so humble, she was already half moved. When she loved him, she couldn't bear to see him suffer the slightest injustice. She no longer loved him. No matter how humbly he pleaded, she remained indifferent. Owen Fu once said that he would no longer beg for her forgiveness like a dog in front of her. Lila Jang smiled slowly. Now, even if he really begged her for forgiveness like a dog, she wouldn't look back. In an instant, Lila Jang's eyes turned completely cold. She didn't even glance at Owen Fu, who was still pleading desperately at the door, and directly raised her hand to draw the curtain, blocking his view. Owen Fu felt a sharp pain in his heart and his voice was shrill and desperate. Ruoro. Just as Lila Jang drew the curtains, the Jiang family's door opened and Jiang Jian walked out slowly. He glanced at Lin Maisie, who was kneeling on the ground, and then his gaze fell on Owen Fu. Jiang Jian gave the bodyguard a look. What are you standing there for? Take these Miss Lin downstairs and treat them well. The grudge of our Jiang family will take it ourselves. My sister Jiang Jian, I spoil her myself. Take good care of my sister just as Miss Lin treated her. The bodyguard nodded immediately, stepped forward and grabbed Lin Maisie on either side, dragging her towards another villa of the Jiang family. Lin Maisie immediately let out a shrill and frightened scream. No. No. I'm not going. Let me go. Let me go. Ah. Help. The Jiang family's bodyguard, expressionless, slapped her directly, interrupting her crying and shouting. The bodyguard was tall to begin with and practiced boxing all year round. When he struck, he showed no mercy. With one slap, Lin Maisie immediately felt dizzy and disoriented. She lowered her head, coughed and spat out blood which was mixed with 2 teeth. When she opened her mouth again, her voice was weak and indistinct. Please. Let me go. Let me go. Jiang Jian just looked at her with a half-smile, his eyes icy cold. On the other side, Owen Fu had no intention of saving her from beginning to end. Lin Maisie's heart had completely plunged into an ice cave. It was not until Lin Maisie was dragged down that Jiang Jian looked at Owen Fu. Do you want Ruoro to forgive you? Owen Fu nodded hurriedly. As long as Ruoro can forgive me, I'll pay any price. Jiang Jian smiled, a mocking smile. So you love her so much. Owen Fu's face turned pale and he still said in a trembling voice, It's my fault. I'm sorry, Ruoro. But I swear I've never loved her for a single second. Jiang Jian couldn't hold back his laughter. Slowly the smile on his face faded, and he became expressionless and extremely cold. He raised his hand and directly pulled out a dagger, throwing it at Owen Fu's feet. Since you said you love him, that's fine. Let me see your sincerity. Owen Fu looked at the dusty dagger on the ground and immediately understood Jiang Jian's meaning. Without hesitation he bent down and picked up the dagger directly. Then without a second thought he pulled it out and stabbed himself hard in the thigh. Owen let out a painful and suppressed groan and staggered. Owen Fu's bodyguard's expression changed dramatically and he hurriedly tried to rush forward. Mr. Fu. Owen Fu raised his hand and said, Don't come over. Jiang Jian looked at him carelessly, then raised his hand and patted the palm of his hand. Not bad. Owen Fu's face turned deathly pale due to the intense pain, and his forehead was covered with cold sweat. After Jiang Jian finished speaking, he directly pulled the dagger out of his thigh. While blood was splattering everywhere, he plunged the dagger into his own abdomen with all his might. Jiang narrowed his eyes and spread out his hand to him, indicating, continue. Owen Fu was in so much pain that he couldn't stand steadily and fell to his knees directly. With a pale face, he stared fixedly in the direction of Lila Zhang's room, although he could only see the tightly closed curtains. Then he slowly drew out the dagger and stabbed himself in the abdomen again. The third strike. The blood on his body had already spilled all over the ground. The color on Owen Fu's face had long since completely faded. In excruciating pain, he gradually lost consciousness. What came to mind was the image of him leaving bloodstains on Lila Zhang's hand in the room. At that time her expression was so painful and her cries were so pitiful. She begged him to stop, but he was so heartless. Time and again he hurt her. Owen Fu could no longer hold back his remorse and shed tears of regret. He slowly collapsed to the ground and, due to excessive blood loss, completely lost consciousness. Jiang gave a soft snort and looked at Owen Fu's bodyguard with disgust. Take him away. Don't die at our doorstep and dirty the land of our Jang family. Owen Fu's bodyguards rushed over in a hurry, treated his wounds urgently and rushed him to the hospital promptly. Jiang looked at the blood all over the ground and said to the servant, make it clean up. Don't let Roro be upset if she sees it. The servants also knew that the young lady had returned home heartbroken and hurriedly began to clean. Jiang glanced at the blood spots on his body, went back to his room to change his clothes, and then went to Lila Zhang's room. A large suitcase was spread out in the room. Lila Zhang was not affected by Owen Fu's arrival and was carefully packing his luggage. Jiang stood quietly at the door and looked at her for a while before saying, feeling heartbroken? Lila Zhang paused in her movements, looked up at Jiang with a hint of helplessness in her eyes. Brother, when I have time I'll care for him. I'd better care for myself. Please don't test me. No matter how much I mistreat myself, I won't turn around and care if someone is hurt after cutting me with a knife. Owen and Fu have nothing to do with me anymore. Jiang smiled and said, it's my sister Jiang. Lila Zhang chuckled softly. But I don't want to see him anymore. I'll be leaving later. Jiang nodded. Okay, but I'm not at ease with you alone. I happen to have a friend in the place you're going to who can take care of you. Lila Zhang turned to look at him and said, I'm not a child anymore. Jiang said expressionlessly, yes, a child wouldn't go home in such a sorry state. When a child is bullied, the first thing they know is to go home and complain. Lila Zhang immediately fell silent. Jiang personally saw her off at the plane that day and gave her a number, asking her to contact his friends upon her arrival. Lila Zhang had already planned to stay abroad for a while to avoid Owen Fu before returning to China. It took a long flight of over 10 hours to reach the Lila River. After dragging her suitcase to the airport pickup hall, Lila Zhang was immediately drawn to a tall and extremely handsome man. The man also saw her at the first moment and then waved at her. Lila Zhang immediately walked towards him and said, you are Siha Bai. Siha Bai was dressed in a silver-gray suit, looking tall and refined. He nodded and casually took the suitcase from her hand. Yes. Lila Zhang said somewhat uncomfortably, Mr. Siha, I'm sorry to trouble you. Siha Bai curled his lips and led her out. Lila Zhang didn't know Siha Bai, but fortunately, although Siha Bai seemed a little distant, he would still find some topics to talk about at the right time. The atmosphere won't be too dull. Lila Zhang soon followed him to the accommodation he had arranged for her. She thought he would simply arrange a place for her to live in, and as long as she could meet Jiang's requirements, that would be fine. Little did she know that when Lila Zhang got home and looked at the house with its strong masculine characteristics, her gaze fell on the men's coat placed on the sofa. She stared at him blankly. Mr. Siha. This. He actually arranged for her to live with him? Siha Bai raised his hand and slightly loosened the tie around his neck. The ascetic aura on her was shattered, and she gained a touch more of casualness and wildness. There was a hint of a smile in his eyes as he said indifferently, your brother said to make sure you are safe. I think it's safer only when it's right under one's nose. Lila Zhang immediately felt as if she were a child, left behind by her family at a friend's house. Siha Bai noticed her shyness and said with a smile, don't worry. I'm at the company most of the time. I just come back to sleep at night. You can use whatever you like at home. You can add anything you want. There's no need to be too reserved. Xia Zhoubai briefly introduced the home layout to her, answered a phone call, and then hurriedly went into the study to be busy. Lila Jiang watched him enter the study and finally relaxed a little. She pushed the suitcase into the secondary bedroom and immediately noticed that the decoration and layout of the secondary bedroom were quite different from those outside. It looked much softer and seemed to have been specially prepared for her. Lila Jiang tidied up her things briefly and then immediately took out her phone, cursing Jiang Jian from head to toe. Little did he know that after hearing her words, Jiang Jian smiled for a while and then said, Xia Zhoubai is a top-notch bachelor, much better than Owen Fu, that good-for-nothing. Everyone says that the best way to get over a relationship is to start a new one. I'm waiting for your good news, bro. Lila Jiang was so angry that she snapped up the phone. Jiang Jian was afraid that she would come back and forgive Owen Fu, so he hurriedly sent her away. Now in his heart, perhaps any man by the roadside is more reliable than Owen Fu. Although Lila scolded Jiang, she knew in her heart that Jiang Jian was worried about her and had her best interests at heart. Fearing that her family would worry, although she wasn't quite used to it, she didn't leave either. Fortunately, Xia Zhoubai was very busy and highly respected her sense of boundaries. She stayed at Xia Zhoubai's home for a full month. He spends most of his time at the company, occasionally staying at home and often holding long meetings in his study. Lila Jiang lived with him but was very free. Whether sleeping at home or going out for a stroll, he never raised any objections. When he is not busy, he will also accompany her to wander around the city. Xia Zhoubai is very erudite. No matter where he goes, he can always tell some historical and cultural stories about certain scenic spots in a gentle and smooth way. Lila Jiang always listened with great interest. It was not until one day when Xia Zhoubai got off work very late that Lila Jiang saw him holding his abdomen and looking rather pale, and guessed that he must have a stomachache. She was not good at cooking, so she cooked him a bowl of instant noodles. Xia Zhoubai also ate it with great relish. The relationship between the two people suddenly drew much closer imperceptibly, and they gradually became friends. Lila Jiang hardly thought of those past events with Owen Fu for a long time. However, on this day Xia Zhoubai had a rare rest and was ready to cook himself. The two of them went to the supermarket together to buy a large quantity of food and came back. Lila Jiang saw a familiar figure at the door. The bag of apples in my hand fell off. The apple rolled out of the bag and rolled down to Owen Fu's feet. Owen Fu looks even more disheveled at this moment than he did a month ago. He was wearing a long windbreaker and was extremely thin. His eyes were fixed on her intently, filled with fanaticism. The next day after waking up in the hospital, he rushed to the Jiang family again with his injury. However, the Jiang family's door was tightly closed. No matter how he pleaded, no one opened it for him. He simply knelt down in front of Jiang's house and waited by her side every day, begging Jiang to see him. After kneeling for 2 days, he fainted from a high fever and was sent to the hospital again. Finally, an old servant of the Jiang family who had watched him grow up felt pity and told him that Lila Jiang had long gone abroad and was no longer at home. Owen Fu, with red eyes, looked at Lila Jiang. Roro, I've been looking for you these days. Your elder brother deliberately gave me a lot of wrong information. During this month I flew all over the place looking for one place after another. Finally I found you. Roro, I really know I was wrong. Please give me some time. Can we have a chat? Xia Zhoubai noticed that Lila Jiang's expression was not good and lowered his eyes gently, saying, Do you know? Lila Jiang pursed her lips and bent down to pick up her friend on the ground. Owen Fu also bent down to help her pick up what was at his feet. However, Lila Jiang simply ignored what was in his hand. After picking up the others, she directly said to Xia Zhoubai, Let's go. Let's go home. The moment Owen Fu saw them, he kept sizing up Xia Zhoubai without showing any emotion. At this moment, seeing Lila Jiang mention the words home, his pupils constricted immediately and he stepped forward somewhat unsteadily, blocking Lila Jiang's way. Roro, what kind of person is he that you don't have? Why did you go home together? Xia Zhoubai raised his hand, grabbed Lila Jiang's arm and protected her behind him. He narrowed his eyes coldly and looked at Owen Fu. Who are you again? Owen Fu said without hesitation, I'm her husband. Lila Jiang couldn't hold back and snorted softly, Husband? Her eyes were cold as she looked at Owen Fu. Even without saying it explicitly, the mockery in her eyes was enough to hurt. Mr. Fu, at such a young age, is his memory not so good? You signed the divorce agreement yourself. How could you forget it so soon? I really can't remember. I'll go home and look through the divorce certificate. I'll always be able to remember. Lila Jang, merciless and with mocking words, stabbed at him without mercy. Owen's heart was filled with pain. He spoke with difficulty. Roro, I admit that it was my stupidity at that time. I arrogantly thought you were just sulting for a moment and that you couldn't really divorce me. I never thought I would really divorce you, never thought I would lose you. Lila Jang playfully repeated the two words never from his mouth. She raised her eyes to look at him. Owen Fu, you are an adult. The moment you signed your name, you knew very well that there was a real possibility that we would get divorced. Stop deceiving yourself. In your heart, Owen Fu, there was once a moment when you were also looking forward to a divorce from me, weren't you? Owen Fu was startled and immediately trembled as he said, I didn't. Lila Jiang chuckled, her tone very certain, you have. She looked at him, her eyes cold and indifferent as if she were looking at a stranger. We grew up together since childhood. Just because I love you, you let yourself go and also let Lin Maisie go, time and again crossing my bottom line. You saw me heartbroken and in agony for you, my pain turned into your joy. You arrogantly think that I can't live without you. No matter what mistakes you make, I can only stand still, foolishly waiting for you to come back. But there was also a moment when you actually thought about getting a divorce. Because of your inherent flaws, you have detested such peaceful happiness. Just like your father, you pursue excitement and pleasure. You have long been attracted to Lin Maisie. That's why you, knowing full well that I could never forgive you, still allowed Lin Maisie to hurt me. That's why you and Lin Maisie lost control and just got along in the office. Lila Jiang suddenly raised her hand and pulled up the sleeve on her arm, revealing 3 scars on it. Xie Zhoubai, standing aside, looked at the injury on her arm and his pupils constricted. Owen Fu's face turned extremely pale. Lila Jiang smiled mockingly and looked at him with tears in her eyes. Owen Fu, stop playing the role of being so affectionate. If you had never had any feelings for Lin Maisie, if you had only been deceived, how could you have slashed me 3 times for her and almost taken my life? Owen Fu trembled his lips and was speechless for a moment. Lila Jiang's words were like a powerful hand, lifting the last veil of shame in his heart. Owen Fu had deceived himself countless times. He was deceived too. Even if he made mistakes, there was still hope for him. He has turned the corner and he has also made Lin Maisie pay the price. But Lila Jiang's words made it impossible for him to deceive himself any longer. Although he realized that the person he loved the most would always be Lila Jiang, and although he turned back in time and even went to scold Lin Maisie in a fit of rage. But he couldn't hide the fact that he had really thought about making Lin Maisie his woman. Even he repeatedly tested the bottom line of the Lila River. Once the Lila River gave in again. Owen Fu opened his lips but couldn't speak. His words became weak and pale. Seeing his dejected look after she had hit the mark on his heart, Lila Jiang sneered and walked straight past him, heading home. Xie Zhoubai gave Owen Fu a cold look and then followed Lila Jiang with something in his hand. Owen raised his eyes and looked at Lila Jiang's retreating figure. Ruruo. Lila Jiang turned a deaf ear to his cries and went straight home. She sat there in a daze on the sofa for a long time. It wasn't until she smelled the fragrance at the tip of her nose that she gradually came to her senses. Looking back, I found that Xie Zhoubai had already made a lot of delicious food, which was being placed one by one on the dining table. Lila Jiang was immediately embarrassed. Sorry, I clearly said I would assist you. Xie Zhoubai, with a gentle smile on his face, handed her the chopsticks and said, now helping to finish these dishes can be considered as giving a hand. Lila Jiang took the chopsticks and began to eat. Xie Zhoubai didn't ask her much about her relationship with Owen Fu, but she subconsciously began to pour out her heart to him. Those pent-up emotions I dare not tell my family, fearing that they will worry. But in the face of the half-acquainted Xie Zhoubai, she had no scruples at all. She was not good at drinking alcohol to begin with. While speaking, she drank more than half a bottle of red wine and got drunk in no time. But she still held on to the wine bottle tightly in her hand. Xie Zhoubai got up, took the red wine bottle from her hand, picked her up and headed towards her room. Lila Jiang leaned against his arms, her tears flowing silently. She suddenly lowered her head and bit him hard on the shoulder. Xie Zhoubai was in pain, but he didn't let her go. Instead, he instinctively held her tighter, fearing that she might fall. And she lay on his shoulder, her breath spraying onto his neck. Her voice was so faint that it was almost inaudible. Yet he still heard her words full of regret. Why do we still lose happiness when we have already grasped it? Why do people always change? Siha carefully placed her on the bed, covered her with the quilt and looked down at her. After a while, he somewhat restrainedly reached out his hand, pushed aside the disheveled hair on her cheek and said gently, "Perhaps that was the wrong person from the very beginning." When Jang woke up the next day, she found herself back in bed. She was stunned for a few seconds, only remembering that the day before while she was eating she had started drinking red wine. While drinking, she talked to Siha about what happened between her and Owen Fu. They have known each other for too long and the story is just too long. Later, her consciousness began to blur and she couldn't remember at all what had happened. She got up and washed up, only to find that Siha hadn't gone to work yet and had already cooked breakfast. She moved to the dining table and while having breakfast said somewhat guiltily, "Did I get drunk yesterday?" Siha fingers brushed over the spot on his shoulder where she had bitten him and then with a natural expression, poured her a cup of milk. No. Only then did Jang breathe a sigh of relief. Siha had a hint of a smile in his eyes. "I'm not busy today. Shall I go for a walk with you?" Jang's eyes lit up and she nodded repeatedly. "Okay." The two of them soon went downstairs. Seeing that it was wet outside, Jang realized that it had rained all night last night. Looking up, she saw a figure standing in front of the villa where they lived. Owen Fu probably stood outside the whole night. He was all wet and his complexion was particularly pale, looking extremely disheveled. The originally lifeless eyes lit up the moment they saw her. Ruruo. He hurried towards her, his eyes brimming with longing. The Laya River's steps came to a halt. Her eyes sized him up from head to toe. Owen Fu's heart couldn't help but follow her gaze, becoming tense. He held his breath subconsciously. However, Jang's eyes were very calm. She suddenly spoke up. "Do you still remember why I brought up divorce for the second time?" Owen Fu recalled for a moment, his face turning pale inch by inch. Jang said slowly, "After the first prank by Lin Maisie, you fired her on the spot and asked for my forgiveness. But later when I went to the company and saw her working there, I realized that you were lying to me. Moreover, on your office chair I found her lace underpants. I brought up divorce with you and went home in a huff. You rushed to my building that very night and explained to me that it was because you learned that Lin Maisie had a pitiful background and that she had sworn she would never do this again, that you felt soft-hearted for a moment. You stood there the whole night. The next day you had a high fever of 40 degrees. My parents advised you to go back first, but you refused to leave. You insisted on waiting for my forgiveness before you passed out and were sent to the hospital." Jang gave a wry smile. "In fact, I knew it back then. Maybe the first time you didn't know, but what about the second time? How else can I deceive myself? Once there is a second time, there will be a third, countless times. I know everything, but I just can't let go. I just think you'll realize your mistake and you won't be like this next time. I can't bear to let go. I feel so sorry for you. Seeing you with a fever and unconscious, I wish I were the one lying on the ground." Owen Fu's eyes were bloodshot and he said in a trembling voice, "I'm sorry. Roro, I'm sorry." Jang smiled. "It doesn't matter because that was also my own choice. Just like now. Standing here in the rain all night is also your choice. Owen Fu, I'm very glad. Your self-torture is of no use to me anymore." Owen Fu's eyes widened in astonishment, and in an instant he was overwhelmed by a deluge of pain. Jang pulled Siha sleeve and then left with him. Ruruo. Owen Fu watched her back and hurriedly wanted to catch up with her. However, he had been injured before and had not fully recovered, so he hurriedly searched for the Laya River all over the world. "My body was depleted and I was caught in the rain all night long. The moment he moved, he felt as if the world was spinning around him." Owen Fu fell to the ground with a thud and lost consciousness immediately. Jang stopped walking forward and turned to look at Owen Fu, who was lying on the ground. She sighed and said to Siha, "Can you find someone to take him to the hospital?" Siha made a direct phone call, instructed his bodyguards and then left directly with Jang. The car passed by Owen Fu, who had fallen to the ground. Jang's gaze calmly swept over him, no longer showing the slightest trace of the former heartache. Owen Fu was soon sent to the hospital. However, after he was sent to the hospital, he had a persistent high fever that wouldn't subside and turned into pneumonia. He was in critical condition several times. After being rescued several times and even staying in the ICU for several days, I was finally able to be transferred to a regular ward. Owen Fu has been in a daze, having countless dreams every day. Sometimes when I dream of the wonderful times when he and Lila Jang were children, even in the dream he would laugh happily out loud. Sometimes he would also dream that he had made Lila Jang sad again and again. He shouted desperately, trying to drive Lin Maisie away at the first moment. He frantically tried to stop the self in his dream, reminding him that his current actions would make him regret for the rest of his life. But there was nothing that could be done. He could only watch as Lila Jang's gaze towards him grew colder and more desperate. The love in those eyes gradually vanished, and in the end, only coldness and hatred remained. Finally Lila Jang smiled and said, "Owen Fu, I'm very glad. Your self-torture is of no use to me anymore." Her smiling and relieved look turned out to be a sharp sword piercing through his heart. Owen Fu woke up from his dream with tears in his eyes. The nurse was changing his dressing. Seeing him wake up, she heaved a sigh of relief and said, "You're finally awake. If the fire keeps burning, they will be worried that he will be burned into a fool." Owen Fu, looking at the empty ward and with the last shred of hope, asked, "Has anyone come to see me?" The nurse looked at him sympathetically. "A bodyguard brought you here, paid your hospitalization fees and then left." No one came during this period. Owen Fu lowered his eyes dejectedly. "I see. Thank you." He stayed in the hospital for another 2 days before being discharged. Owen Fu once again came outside the villa where Lila Jiang and Xie Zhoubai lived. Inside the room, Lila Jiang seemed to be chatting with Xie Zhoubai. The two of them chatted about something and Lila Jiang was amused and couldn't stop laughing. Her laughter reached his ears through the door panel. Owen Fu subconsciously curled his lips, but tasted a hint of bitterness. She hadn't smiled at him sincerely for a long time. Owen Fu didn't go forward to disturb him anymore. Instead, he hid in the dark and secretly observed Lila Jiang's life. For a full half-month he was like a mouse that couldn't bear the light, peeping into her happiness with others every day. He could tell that Lila Jiang had been having a great time these days. She became obsessed with photography and would take pictures everywhere with her camera every day. Her photography skills were improving every day. She has also developed a fondness for cooking. Occasionally she goes to the supermarket to buy vegetables and study some new recipes. However, she had never had much talent for cooking. Owen Fu, standing outside the door, could occasionally smell the burnt smell. The next moment he would hear her scream in pain. Another failure. She also fell in love with playing chess. Although this community is located abroad, many of its residents are Chinese. Quite a few people would get together to play chess. Occasionally Lila Jiang would take a walk in the villa area, stroll over and play a few games. She is not very skilled at playing chess, but she is very popular among the elderly here. Everyone likes to tease her. Owen Fu knew that all these changes in her were brought about by Xie Zhoubai. Xie Zhoubai would take photos with her, cook with her and play chess with her. He silently accompanied and occupied the place beside and in Lila Jiang's heart. And he who once stood beside the Lila River, could only watch from afar, feeling jealous and helpless. He knew that there was no place for him by Lila River's side anymore. It was not until this day that Lila Jiang celebrated her birthday. Owen Fu spent over 10 days making a bracelet for Lila Jiang. Taking advantage of Lila Jiang and Xie Zhoubai leaving the door, he sneaked into the villa quietly and placed the bracelet on her table. After putting the things away, Owen Fu left in a hurry. He was afraid that Lila Jiang would see him and it would affect his mood. He had just stepped out of the door and was about to drive away when he saw a car pass by his side. Owen Fu subconsciously took a look and saw a woman sitting in the back seat of that car, wearing a baseball cap that covered most of her face. It was just a fleeting glance, but Owen Fu felt that the person looked strangely familiar. He couldn't help looking at the car that was moving further and further away through the rearview mirror. He drove forward subconsciously, but the further he went, the more uneasy he became in his heart. This unusual feeling reminded him of the day when Lila Jiang left his side, and he was also so restless. Owen Fu could no longer sit still and immediately drove to the villa where Lila Jiang and Xie Zhoubai lived. The car had just reached the entrance of the villa when Lila Jiang and Xie Zhoubai happened to come back together. Xie Zhoubai was still carrying a small cake in his hand. The two were chatting and laughing, just about to open the door and enter the house. Owen Fu didn't notice anything unusual. But the moment he saw Lila Jiang, he rushed out subconsciously, Ruruo. Lila Jiang stopped in her tracks and turned her head to look at him. There was no surprise in her eyes. Owen Fu's tracking skills are not outstanding. She noticed it long ago. She just knew that he wouldn't hurt her, so she didn't care whether he was following her or not. She just pretended not to know. This was the first time Owen Fu had appeared since he was sent to the hospital with a fever nearly a month ago. Lila Jiang looked at him calmly and asked, "What's the matter?" Owen Fu looked into her calm eyes, a bitter taste spreading in his heart. He clenched his fists, suppressing the pain in his heart, and forced a smile with all his might. "Happy birthday." Lila Jiang smiled calmly and said, "Thank you." That smile didn't reach the eyes, just like a polite word from a stranger. Owen Fu looked at her appearance and was so sad that he could hardly breathe. His eyes became moist almost in an instant. Owen Fu turned sideways somewhat embarrassedly and dared not look at her again. Just as I turned my face sideways, I saw a figure suddenly walk out from the side of the villa. It's that woman in the car. Dressed in a gray-black outfit, wearing a hat and a mask. Owen Fu still recognized it at a glance. It was Lin Maisie. Owen Fu's heart was pounding wildly. The next moment he saw Lin Maisie take out a gun from her pocket and then prepare Lila Jiang. Through the mask, Owen Fu could almost tell the ferocity on her face. "Go to hell." Owen Fu's expression changed dramatically. He immediately rushed over and stood in front of Lila Jiang. Xie Zhoubai also immediately held Lila Jiang in his arms and protected her with his body. Bang! The sound of gunfire came instantly. Lila Jiang was stiff all over and wanted to turn back, but was tightly protected in Xie Zhoubai's arms. Immediately after, there were several consecutive gunshots and the woman's agonized cries. It was not until Xie Zhoubai's bodyguard spoke up. "Sir, it's settled." Xie Zhoubai finally let go of the Lila River. Lila Jiang turned around and saw that not far away, Lin Maisie's hat and mask had fallen to the ground. She collapsed on the ground, staring at her position with her eyes wide open. Beside her, Owen Fu was kneeling on the ground. He was standing right in front of the Lila River. At this moment, a blood hole was gushing from his chest. Lila Jiang looked at the wounds on his body in terror, and tears rolled down her face immediately. Owen Fu looked at her. As soon as he opened his mouth to speak, blood gushed out. He held her hand tightly. "Not bad. You're fine." Lila Jiang trembled all over and tightly held his hand back. "Stop talking. Go to the hospital. Go to the hospital right now." Xie Zhoubai also reacted immediately and together with Lila Jiang, sent Owen Fu to the hospital. Lila Jiang held his hand tightly all the time. Owen Fu's body was shaking uncontrollably because of excessive blood loss. His face was deathly pale and his consciousness gradually became hazy. The hand that was holding her tightly was very forceful. Unconsciously he kept repeating 3 words in his mouth. "Sorry." Lila Jiang said with tears in her eyes. "Enough, Owen Fu. I forgive you. Hold on. Don't die." Owen Fu's lips trembled as he tried his best to hold them back, but tears still streamed down his face. He still held her hand tightly until she was taken to the door of the operating room. Lila Jiang whispered, "I'll wait for you outside. You must come back to life." Only then did Owen Fu let go of her hand and was sent into the operating room. Lila Jiang lowered her eyes, looking at the blood of Owen Fu on her body, trembling all over. Xie Zhoubai, who was standing by, saw her pale face and raised his hand to hold her in his arms. Lila Jiang couldn't hold back her tears, hugged him tightly and burst into tears. Scared. She's scared. She had thought of hating Owen for the rest of her life, but she had never thought of making him die for her. Xie Zhoubai's gentle voice rang out, giving her an endless sense of security. "Don't be afraid. I won't let anything happen to him." Lila Jiang looked up at him. Xie Zhoubai reached out his hand and gently wiped the tears off her cheek. He said softly, "If he died for you, you probably won't be able to let him go for the rest of your life. I won't give him this chance." Xie Zhoubai immediately mobilized the most authoritative doctors from various departments and rushed to the hospital. Owen Fu was critically ill several times but was saved several times. The operation lasted for 8 hours before Owen Fu was completely out of danger. Lila Jiang heaved a complete sigh of relief and fainted the next moment.